My name is Eli. I'm 42 years old, an architect by trade. I've spent the last 15 years designing everything from sleek office buildings to cozy homes. People say I have an eye for detail, but until that day, I thought my own life was designed solidly enough. Not one crack, no weak spots. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind of day that feels both ordinary and strange at the same time. Outside, the sky was overcast with a soft rain that tapped steadily on the windows. Not the kind of storm that sends you running for cover, more like a slow, quiet drizzle that makes the world feel muted. Perfect for reflection. Or so I thought. The mail arrived just as I was finishing a late lunch. Mostly the usual, bills, flyers, the kind of junk mail you barely glance at before tossing into the bin. But this envelope was different. Thick, cream-colored, with a heavy gold trim that caught the light. It screamed elegance and arrogance all at once. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe a fancy invite from a client or an old friend. I was standing by the trash can when I tore it open, not even bothering to sit down. My thumb slipped under the flap, and the paper gave way easily, like it was inviting me into a world I wasn't prepared for. Then I saw the names. Madison and Marcus. Invite you to celebrate their union. It took me a moment. I blinked once. Twice. My coffee mug slipped from my fingers. It crashed onto the tile floor, shards flying, but I didn't hear the noise. My mind was frozen, stuck on the words in front of me. Madison. My wife. Still my wife. We hadn't divorced. Not yet. We were 2 months into a trial separation. That's what she called it, needing time to find herself. I respected that. I thought she was hurting. I thought maybe we could fix things. I never imagined she was planning a wedding with someone else. I held the invitation carefully, like it was a fragile lie. Flipping it over, the details sank in deeper. May 18th. Napa Valley. Black tie affair. RSVP by April 15th. A cold wave washed over me. Most people would have screamed or called her right then. Demanded explanations. Yelled until their voice broke. But I didn't. I took a picture of the invitation instead. I cleaned up the broken mug silently, each piece like a symbol of the life I thought I had. Then I sat down alone in the quiet kitchen, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. For over an hour, I just stared out the window, watching the rain blur the world beyond. Because Madison had no idea who she was dealing with. She thought she could rewrite our story without me noticing. But I was about to design my own ending. For 3 days, I didn't tell a soul. Not my friends, not my family, not even my closest colleagues at the firm. I showed up to work like nothing had changed, answered emails, sat through meetings, even mowed the lawn on the weekend. The outside world saw a man trying to keep it together. But inside, something was shifting. The calm was just a surface. Underneath, the gears of a plan were turning. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, like a machine waking up from a long sleep. I wasn't going to let this go. I was going to redesign this mess on my own terms. The first step was Ruth. Ruth was my lawyer. Sharp as a razor, unapologetic, the kind of woman who made judges nervous and opponents sweat. She was my secret weapon, and I needed her now more than ever. I called her first thing Monday morning. "Ruth," I said, "I've got something you need to see." An hour later, I was sitting across from her in her sleek, glass-walled office. The city hummed faintly outside, but inside, everything felt frozen. I slid the invitation across her desk. She picked it up, turning it over slowly, her brow furrowing. "You're still married," she said, voice low, almost shocked. This is bigamy." I nodded. She never filed for divorce. Not a word. Ruth looked up, eyes sharp. "And the wedding is when?" 3 weeks. She leaned back in her chair, a slow, satisfied smile creeping onto her lips. "Then we better make good use of that time." We started digging in. Joint assets, bank statements, hidden transfers, text logs. All the paperwork Madison probably thought I'd never touch. It turned out she had emptied our joint account the day she left. "Rent and yoga retreats," she'd said when I asked. But the paper trail told a different story. Hidden under layers of transactions, I found the real secret, a startup. A business Madison and Marcus had started together. Registered in Colorado, but under Marcus's name. Funded by our money. My investment portfolio, drained to bankroll their dreams. They thought I'd be too heartbroken to notice. That I'd just fade quietly into the background. But they didn't know me. The next call was to Miles. Miles was the private investigator I hired months ago for a separate matter. A former FBI agent with nerves of steel and a reputation for precision. When I called him, I didn't ask questions or explain much. Find everything, I said. Photos, emails, wire transfers. Everything they don't want me to see. Within a week, he delivered. Photos of Madison and Marcus touring venues, emails detailing business plans, screenshots of money moving between accounts. And then the clincher. Madison had listed me as legally divorced on their wedding paperwork. I stared at the printout, disbelief and fury mixing in my chest. I printed everything, organized it, labeled it. My silent arsenal. Then I waited. Waiting was torture, but I knew it was necessary. Madison thought she was in control. She thought she was winning. She had no idea the storm that was coming. The days crept by like storm clouds rolling in slow motion. Each morning, I woke up expecting some sign, some crack in Madison's perfect facade. But there was nothing. No texts, no calls, just silence from the woman who once knew every inch of my soul. Instead, I watched her online world unravel in filtered photos and polished stories. Wine tastings with Marcus, dress fittings, spa weekends. She was building a new life on Instagram, complete with sunshine captions and fake smiles. Meanwhile, my mood thundered beneath the surface. The storm was gathering. I knew exactly where it was all going to happen. The venue she picked for the big day. A picturesque vineyard just outside Napa Valley, surrounded by lavender fields and old stone chapels. The kind of place people dream about for weddings and anniversaries. Elegant, perfect, expensive. She chose elegance, but I was preparing for impact. I didn't RSVP. That would have been giving her too much. Instead, I booked a hotel room just minutes from the vineyard. A little base camp for what was coming. That afternoon, I met again with Ruth and Miles in my office. Ruth's eyes were sharp, calculating. Miles's phone buzzed constantly with updates from his surveillance. We compiled everything, layer by layer, fact by fact. Look at this, Ruth said, pointing to the screen. Marcus signing papers, right under Madison's direction. This isn't some side gig. It's a full-blown business. Miles nodded. And here, he added, sliding over a stack of screenshots, are the wire transfers Madison made, thousands of dollars flowing into their LLC accounts. Cleaned out your investment portfolio like it was nothing. I stared at the documents, the weight of betrayal settling heavy on my chest. Then came the final piece. The draft marriage certificate, pre-signed and submitted with false information. Madison claiming I was legally divorced. A lie that could cost her everything. On the legal front, Ruth was like a storm chaser, calm, methodical, and ready to strike when the time was right. They rehearsed a perfect day, she said quietly. But I'm the one who's going to bring the storm they never saw coming. 2 days before the wedding, I made my move. Not to stop the ceremony. Not yet. But to freeze their finances. I filed a cease and desist to freeze their joint bank accounts, including the ones linked to my investment portfolio. The paperwork was delivered to Marcus's apartment on a Friday afternoon, just as the weekend buzz was starting. I imagined Marcus's face reading those words. He must have realized then that the game was up. That very evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Madison. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I stared at the message but didn't reply. Why give her the satisfaction? Let her wonder. Let her sweat. She left me in confusion. Now I'd leave her in dread. The morning of May 18th arrived with clear skies and a warm breeze. I dressed carefully, a navy suit, crisp shirt, but no tie. I didn't need to blend in. I wasn't there as a guest. I was there as the finale. The sun was shining like it knew nothing about the storm about to break. It poured warm light over rows of pristine white chairs, perfectly aligned on the manicured lawn. A string quartet played softly, something classical, elegant, and forgettable, like background music in a dream you don't quite remember. Madison had gone all out. Handwritten menus curled with delicate calligraphy, blush-toned roses spilling from crystal vases, and champagne flutes that looked almost too tall and fragile to hold anything but empty promises. I stood at the back, trying to blend in, or at least remain invisible. Around me, guests murmured quietly, their voices low with anticipation. Phones buzzed discreetly as people snapped photos and posted on social media. But no one noticed me, or the two people standing beside me. One in a tailored navy blazer, calm and collected, the other in black slacks with a badge clipped to her belt, eyes scanning the crowd. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my mind, but standing there, nothing could prepare me for the surreal calm before the chaos. Then, just as the music swelled, she appeared. Madison glided down the aisle like a magazine cover come to life. lace hugging every curve, diamonds sparkling in the sunlight, and a smile that tried too hard to mask the deceit beneath. She didn't see me. Not at first. She walked past Marcus, past the officiant, her eyes searching the crowd, probably looking for familiar faces, or maybe for a sign of victory. Then she reached the altar, and froze. Her gaze swept past the crowd. It locked on me. Time seemed to stop. And then came the voice. "Madison Lane?" She flinched like a cornered animal. The woman with the badge stepped forward. "IRS Criminal Investigations. We need to speak with you." The gasps rippled through the crowd, louder now. Phones lowered. Eyes widened. The officiant looked like he'd swallowed a wasp, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Madison's composure cracked. This must be a mistake," she stammered, voice trembling. The second officer, Miles, no longer undercover, pulled out a thick stack of documents, flipping through them like a judge ready to pass sentence. "I'm afraid it's not," he said coldly. Marcus turned ghost white, his face drained of color. His hand reached shakily for his phone, but before he could dial, the vineyard's private security intervened. "Mr. Carver," the security chief said firmly, "we need you to leave the premises. The account used to fund this event has been frozen." Whispers grew louder. I stepped forward, taking a single deliberate step, just enough so Madison could hear me clearly. "Thanks for the invite," I said, voice low but cutting through the murmurs like a blade. She looked like she wanted to collapse, knees threatening to buckle. But I wasn't done yet. Turning to the crowd, I added, "Truth has a way of showing up, no matter how hard you try to hide it." The crowd's reaction was a mix of shock and awe. Some looked at me like I was the villain, others the hero. Madison's perfect day had turned into a public unmasking. And this was only the beginning. They didn't cuff her, not that day. That moment would come later. But for now, Madison was simply escorted off the premises, her bouquet still clutched in trembling hands, the delicate veil dragging behind her like a white flag of surrender across the dewy vineyard grass. The guests were frozen, stunned into silence. Someone dropped a champagne flute, the sharp clink breaking the hush. A woman whispered nervously, "Is this real?" It was. The wedding didn't just pause. It died right there, under the sun-soaked sky and the eyes of everyone who thought they were witnessing a fairy tale. Marcus, pale and desperate, tried to salvage what was left of the moment. He stormed toward the security team, pleading with them to let him speak to Madison one last time. They stood firm. "No," one said. "This isn't a show. It's legal." He demanded to see the documents they had, the proof that exposed everything. The frozen accounts, the money transfers in Madison's name, the falsified business filings. His jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Looking around wildly for an ally, he found only empty eyes. No one came to his aid. No one to catch the fall. They had built their fantasy on lies, and it collapsed under the weight of truth. I didn't linger. I had seen what I came to see. My part was done. By Monday, Ruth was hard at work. The divorce papers, once just a draft, were now signed and officially filed, with additional clauses citing fraud and deceit, wiping away any claim Madison might have had to alimony or shared assets. The house, it was mine. The business accounts, frozen and legally rerouted. The retreat fund she'd used to quietly drain, recovered and locked into an investment trust, under my name, safe and untouched. But the sweetest victory was watching the board of directors from her startup, the one she planned to lead, unanimously vote to remove her after our evidence became public. Madison didn't just lose a husband. She lost her brand, her reputation, her future. The illusion that she could manipulate her way into power was shattered forever. 6 months later, I moved into a downtown loft, clean lines, exposed brick, my sanctuary. Every morning, I brewed coffee the old-fashioned way. No pods, no shortcuts, just the rich, comforting smell of new beginnings. One quiet afternoon, I received an email. Subject, invitation accepted. It was from the same startup board that had ousted Madison and Marcus. They wanted me on board as a consultant, said they respected integrity. I didn't hesitate. When they write you off, stay silent. Then let success do the loud part. Madison called once after everything settled. Left a voicemail. "Eli, I don't know what to say. I thought you were asleep. I thought you didn't care anymore. I never meant for it to be like that." I deleted it. Not from anger, but because I didn't need closure from someone who mailed me betrayal in a foil-lined envelope. I already had my answer. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Then let them go. And that's exactly what I did. The day she said yes to another man without ever saying goodbye to me, she gave me the freedom to say yes to myself. And that, truly, was the last gift she ever gave me. It wasn't about getting even. It was about getting free.